Over the course of any card game, there are always more powerful cards being released and new synergies that arise. In order to be able to maintain some balance, occasionally nearly every game realizes that some cards need to be limited or flat out banned. The Digimon Card Game is no different. Effective now, there are 6 cards that have been added to the limited list as of August 31st, so has already happened. While one card that was limited almost a year ago has now been decided that it no longer needs to be restricted and is now becoming free to play again. So let's look into the cards that are being added now that should help shake up the decks that you will play or play against. Though I know it always sucks when your favorite cards or decks get hit, but it is for a good cause, right? So welcome over to the Digimon Card Game site, where we will look at the cards that have just been announced that are being limited. So, now being restricted only to one is Ukamon. Ever since Digimon The Beginning came out and this cute little guy arrived, well, don't be fooled by his cute appearance if you've seen the movie. But he is a card that definitely allows for a lot of speeding up, a lot of free memory to be gained, and in any deck that doesn't require a very specific level 3, or some decks that don't require any level 3s at all. Therefore, he has become a bit of an issue. So, he is being limited to only one per deck. So sometimes you can still get some of that speed up and a little bit of a synergy to keep your deck moving and flowing earlier. But it's not going to be a constant thing that you can rely on. Especially if he is paired with his tamer, Louie. Which, if we scroll down here, oh wait, there he is. Now, anything that has effects that are not limited to once per turn can be dangerous. Especially this one had a lot of other combos that it could be very dangerous with. So again, just a lot of acceleration that some decks just aren't built to be that fast. And for me, a lot more fun matches will take more than just a couple of turns, be rushed down so fast that there's nothing you can do. That usually isn't very healthy for any game. So being able to actually, do something is always a very good and welcome sight. So, therefore, being able to slow him down as well as Ukamon, this will just very much slow the game down in general. Speaking of slowing the game down, that seems to be a large point of what these cards are. Or, if we look all the way back from the very second starter deck, Hammer Spark is now also limited. Now, some of you, it may seem like a very innocent little card that doesn't do a lot for 0 gain 1 memory. But early on, especially when you're fighting for control, getting that early push to have some control or do one really big turn to overwhelm your opponent's board and clear it, there are so many different things you can do with easy memory gain that can come out of nowhere that this has absolutely no counterplay, except for the very few cards that you pretty much were required to run if this game was meta, such as cards that stop you from gaining memory outside of tamer effects. So this again was just a card that it was either you had to run it if you could run it in a deck, and you had to run countermeasures into it if it was prominent. It was just generally too strong of a card, and therefore it was required to be restricted. And a card that's been around for a while as well is Awakening of the Golden Knight. I will admit this is one I'm not as familiar with, but I am familiar with a few of the things that it can do, with being able to cheat out another Digimon with both layers, if it's Magnamon and Magnamon X, both being layered on top of each other, having strong effects to help lock down the board, and Armor Purge makes it so that it is a very difficult Digimon to remove. On top of that, cheating it out early for just the 3 cost of the card, which is much less than it would cost to bring out all of that in the first place, and making it immune to DP lowering effects, which is what a few colors heavily rely on in order to deal with some of their bigger threats. It had so many things going for it that it creates situations, again, that were just almost impossible for certain decks to handle. So, once again, it was limited to 1. Now, one that I'm a little more familiar with is Numemon X. This is a deck that is very common because it is very sticky. It is a board that very often you want to fight for control of the board in any card game. That's very simple and true in this one as well. This card just was so sticky, but on top of that, the thing that it brought could be a free level 6, which if you couldn't deal with immediately on your turn when you already had dealt with this thing, could then easily become a level 7, which then spiraled into a board that was just so easy to create and so hard to deal with. So it became an auto include and made sure that you wanted to make that combo work, and really made sure that it wasn't a particularly great experience, especially because you can always run this in yourself. It's not just something that your opponent can just ignore. If you run it into security and destroy it, you can also trigger non-deletion effects, as I'm sure any of you who have played the card game are well aware. So therefore, this consistency was a bit of an issue to get to level 7 within a turn or two, and so was limited. And here's one that even I'm a little sad to see. I understand why, but I love my yellow vaccine deck. I have played this quite a bit. The ease of triggering the memory up on this effect really was one of the biggest problems, especially because he can trigger himself in that manner. And that way that if you are not removing or adding a security card to your deck, to your security stack using this deck, something has gone wrong. Almost every turn you are doing that. You are juggling your security stack as if it is part of your hand. It is very much a part of this deck. And just it being too easy to regain your memory from it was an issue. Listen, I love this deck. I've played many variations of it. I find this to be very fun. I like decks that last longer, have more play around and stuff that can make battles last longer. But again, I understand why that kind of deck needed just a little bit, because sometimes making duels take, an hour is not ideal. And just having an ease of memory so you can do so much is not always what you want. I believe I saw in some places that they were also considering adding the Patamon that at the start of main phase adds you attempt to digivolve from your security stack and do a memory recovery there as well, is to be limited, but it appears that officially on their site that has not been listed just yet. But do be aware that could be coming. Hello, Blind Dog. Oh, I know. You haven't been banned or limited, you're okay. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the cards that were added almost a year ago to the limited list has now been removed, the ST6 Gabumon, where it was just a case of one of the decks that allows you to attack over and over again. There's already a Gabumon deck that does this, that I'm more familiar with, a blue Gabumon deck that uses a lot of the X antibody cards. That this is just a card that a lot of the effects have kind of kept up with it, and therefore no longer really needs to be on this list, and therefore is once again available. Black Gabumon agrees. It's a good choice, isn't it? It doesn't need to be limited. Yeah. So those are the cards that have been added to the limited list here. I know some people were expecting a little bit more of the Mirage Galgamon deck to possibly be added here, which I do know, I have played a little bit, is a very powerful deck. But I mean, looking at what really pushed through and is some of the highest performing decks, it doesn't seem like a lot of it seems like a decent variety to me, and so I don't think they needed to go crazy on anything. And obviously, the brand newest decks, they want people to buy cards, so they didn't go for a lot of those. But the couple, especially this Magnabon X here, seem to be doing well, and so it was brought into line along with the yellow vaccine and just general control decks that were using Ukamon. But that is the limited cards for August, for the end of August into September 2024. So thank you all. If you're looking to have more Digimon news and content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any news. And if you're looking for more Digimon information and possibly to learn how the card game yourself, there's an online Digimon client that you can learn about it as well. Why don't you click on this video right here in order to learn more about how to get into the Digimon card game yourself.